I didn't know that your series was focused on the intersection of Black Americans in the financial system. Where do
Yes.
we begin? I'm absolutely, I'm like panting here. Yes, let's talk
Yes.
about it. I remember last summer, or not even last, was it last summer? But my co-host Tiffany telling a story of how her home was appraised lower. She actually had a white friend that she had on tap to appear at her home as Tiffany, in order to get a higher appraisal when they were trying to do, I think, a refinance. And now we're starting to see more of these really upsetting but important anecdotes from other Black homeowners who are
Yes.
proving our homes have been undervalued. And I just think of, and I live now in a majority Black neighborhood in the suburbs of New York, which is just this little gem that I hope no one bugs us, ever bothers us. But I have to reckon with the fact that my husband and I could afford a house here because it's one of the more cheaper of areas of our county.
Yep.
And I have to assume it's because it's been a largely Black middle class neighborhood, since the 1940s. But talk to me about the series. Where do you even begin, Kim? Like where do you begin? And like,
Yes.
do you
So
have
that
help?
point,
This is
I
a
mean,
lot.
that point in itself, that just, it resonates so hard. I was talking to someone who is very well off, started an entrepreneur who is pulling in massive amounts of money. And even he had that experience about being quoted a higher interest rate on a house that he was buying than he was originally given when the transaction was still purely online and once they saw him. So that affects, that's still happening. In the realm of funny, not funny, I got married last year. My husband is white and we are thinking about moving. And one of the things I've said to him is like, all right, well, you haven't had this experience before, but when it's time to appraise the house, I think we should take the pictures down. When, if there is a situation where you have to go into the mortgage agent, you'll take the tax returns and I want you to go in. And it's awful. It's awful he was appalled. And I'm appalled too. I'm appalled that this is the system. I also don't want the sky high interest rate. So I'm going to do what I need to do in the meantime to survive. But that's exactly the kind of thing that we're talking about. And it is foundationally, especially when it comes to buying home property, I sort of start with explaining how preventing Black folks from owning land is the foundational part of all of this. And then I go in this series to explore 4 different areas where that's just gotten a little bit less attention than housing discrimination and redlining. This one's getting much more attention now thanks to some lawmakers, but one is student loan debt. Student loan debt is a massive contributor to the racial wealth gap because Black parents like mine teach us, got to go to school, got to go to college. If you want to succeed, like you got to work hard and go to college. Well, college is very expensive. And then I went to law school. I became a lawyer. I did the things that I thought I was supposed to do. That landed me 6 figures in debt. And I remembered when I was graduating law school and I had my exit interview with a financial aid, talking to a friend of mine afterwards saying, "Oh my God, did you have your exit interview and they just told you how much money you owe? Isn't that crazy?" And my friends, who were largely white, almost all white, said, what interview? We don't have loans. Our parents paid for law school. And I thought, oh, so we graduated. I'm seeing them buying cars, buying houses, getting married, moving to the suburbs. And I'm still in my rental, in Jamaica Plain, Boston, barely making ends meet, trying to make those massive student loan payments the best that I could. And it's like, oh, this is what the wealth gap means. It doesn't just mean what your parents pass on to you. It's what you have in this life as you're just trying to get by. And that was sort of what made me think of this. And I look at credit reporting, the barriers in there, access to business capital. Black people could be contributing so much more to the economy if you just let them start businesses and hire people and put that money back into the economy. And also investment and retirement. The racial wealth gap doesn't just harm Black and brown people, it harms everybody. It strips trillions of dollars from the gross national product over our lifetimes. It really is costing everyone money. And I'm hoping that if I put it that way, like you want to stop this from costing you money in your pocket, then do what you can to be a part of the solution here.
Yeah. I'm so grateful that that you are doing this kind of work. It's so, so important. And I hope that a lot of non-Black people read it and are moved by it and understand, because I bet all those friends of yours from law school probably go through the world thinking, I worked hard. I went to law school. People are mad that they can't have a house. Well, they should have worked harder. But if you don't understand the privilege and that whole starting line being so far set back for some people, how can you the majority is in power, right? So we need allyship and understanding from non-Black and brown people in positions of power. When they start to care, that's when the change happens. We saw what happened with George Floyd in the summer of 2020, when enough of the majority started to care, not just besides us. And it felt extraordinary. But how can we bring something like that to the same fever point in the financial sector? It's quiet discrimination. It's nefarious. It's like a toxic cancer, right? And we understand it, especially on Brown Ambition. We understand why it is that we're doing what we're doing, but it doesn't necessarily always make headlines. There was the more recent one about Wells Fargo with, was it Wells Fargo that discriminated or gave so much more mortgage denials to Black homeowners than any other bank? I think it was recent. Right. I'll check the facts on that one, if it was Wells Fargo or not. I just feel like they're the worst in general. So probably it was them, but it's usually Wells Fargo, right? But the attention that article was getting, I'm like, yes, more of this, more data to show how racism pops up for us.
Absolutely. And it's also important for us to show solutions, these are things that we could be doing instead. These are other paths that people have taken that maybe can be adapted on a wider scale. These are things that individuals can do to empower themselves in this system. So we don't want it just to be, like I said, a regurgitation of the problem. We want this to be a playbook and also start a conversation. Look, I don't have all the answers, even with all the reporting that I did, all the people that I talked to about solutions. This is not exhaustive. So I hope once this comes out, more people will say, hey, we know that problem, and this is a solution that we've tried, or this is a new program that we are taking on. And so that we can continue this conversation and come up with more solutions. It is not a stagnant thing. And so that we can not only educate people about these barriers, but also empower them, including all stakeholders, everybody from the banks of America down to your individual self at your kitchen table, trying to make ends meet at the end of each month. What everybody can do, what is in everybody's power, and what's everybody's responsibility to making sure that realization, that ideal in the Declaration of Independence, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness is real for everyone.